Hello, this is
Good morning. There's a little bit of an echo.
Good morning. I don't know if all of the candidates are here, but we're going to start shortly. We'll just give it one more minute. Okay, I hope everyone enjoyed the samba music. It just kind of reminded me of my first time living overseas in Brazil. So I just want to give that flavor to this atmosphere today. We're just going to go ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me just do a start here. Okay. Okay, so thanks so much for attending this, our meet and greet. So welcome to International Association of Black Professionals in International Affairs, virtual candidate and meet and greet meeting. I'm Alexandria Haidara, BPIA board member at large and host of the popular podcast Global Tape. I'm also co-chair of the Governance and Nominating Committee and chair of the Communications Committee. We are very pleased and enthusiastic that you have chosen to be here today as we hear candidates running for the Board of Directors. The Board of Directors oversees charged with oversight of BPIA's mission, preserving BPIA's institutional autonomy, setting policy, and supporting and promoting the organization. The purpose of BPIA are the following. A, to promote greater involvement of Black individuals and organizations committed to the furthering the interests of people of African heritage in international charitable, cultural, economic, and education endeavors, and B, to foster international understanding, relations, and cooperation. BPIA was founded in 1989 by the late and Honorable Barbara Patterson, who formed this nonprofit association exclusively for education and charitable purposes. Thus, BPIA will celebrate its 33rd anniversary this May. And we know that the late Miss Barbara Patterson will be very proud of her legacy and what her organization is now. She'll be enthusiastic to hear that BPIA has continued her goals of providing scholarships for students wishing to study abroad, programming with our partners such as Deloitte and others, to discuss foreign policy issues and mentorship programs, to name a few. While we understand there's more work to do, we look forward to welcoming the next generation of leaders to serve BPIA members and ensure that more people of African heritage hold leadership and influence in international affairs. In today's meeting, each candidate will give 4 minutes to speak and 4 minutes for Q&A. So that's a total of 8 minutes. Then Billy will be our co-moderator, and she will be co-moderating the meeting as well as being the timekeeper. BPIA is committed to maintain an environment where all members are treated fairly with dignity and respect, and that is free from discrimination, harassment, and bullying. Thus, we hope to make sure all candidates respect the code of conduct at today's meeting and uphold BPIA's high standard of professionalism and excellence. So let's get started. I'm really excited to hear everyone's speeches today, and we're going to start off with our candidates for president. So we'll start off with Mr. Cal Williams.
Hello, good morning. This is Sandila. Thanks so much, Alexandria, for that nice introduction. So we're going to go according to both alphabetical order and according to the different offices. So we'll start off with the offices for president. Alexandria Maloney first, and then John Cal Williams second. Each will be given 4 minutes for their formal speech and then 4 minutes for open Q&A. I will come in exactly at time, and so you'll be able to wrap up the sentence that you're on, but no longer than that, since we've got 13 great candidates that are going to speak today. Okay, so we'll start off with Alexandria. Please come on in. You've got 4 minutes. Thanks.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Confirm that we can hear you.
Thank you. Greetings to new and familiar faces. My name is Alexandria Maloney, and I am running for re-election as BPIA president. I first joined BPIA 8 years ago, and I've both experienced and contributed to the opportunities and the doors that this organization opens for our community. What I've learned from peer social impact organizations, as I shared the first time I ran for president, is that they are formally, actively, and strategically seated at the table and engaging leaders in our nation's highest institutions. And my work and vision as BPIA president has been to make this a reality that BPIA also has a seat. My vision at the onset of leading BPIA has been and still is simple: elevating the organization to the national and international level, engaging directly with the Hill, the White House, the United Nations, putting BPIA at the forefront of current events and issues pertaining to our community, lifting the voices of BPIA members in the space while giving others the opportunities to serve. The biggest strength that I bring to the role as president is my commitment to this organization and to each of you as members. I worked for years to build and engage BPIA's digital and global community, bringing us new opportunities and jobs, helping to mentor the next generation, and leading our virtual shift to the career fair. When I began my term, the first order of business was to facilitate our board's leadership retreat, where board members were asked to prepare and present their strategic objectives for their role for the year. Shout out to the board members who not only successfully executed their plan, but exceeded it. My strategic objectives for 2022 included preparing to strategically scale, which we've done to over 400 new paid members. 2, bringing in 2 to 5 new sponsors with an overall budget goal of $100,000 by December 2022, which that I chaired, sponsoring the subcommittee for the career fair. And thirdly, increasing the national profile and impact of BPIA through regularly engaging with leaders in our nation's highest offices, which can be seen across our social media and our website. In terms of the governance of our organization, I'd like to applaud the board members responsible for maintaining our records, our financial standing, and our governance practices in alignment with our bylaws and our procedures. In the first 30 days, I supported the development and implementation of BPIA's first ever code of conduct and reestablishment of the BPIA Advisory Council that engages past board members and leaders in the community committed to bringing resources and opportunities to BPIA. Per our latest 3-hour standard annual review of our governance documents and practices with the DC Pro Bono Law Group, the 3 lawyers present concluded BPIA was, quote, observing our governance formalities, and quote, our governance practices are within the best practices and compliant, except for a bylaw relating to proxy voting that predated our time on the board. At my personal preference, the treasurer is the only board member with access to BPIA's bank accounts. Our community has been expanding rapidly on a mission to continue to build on the legacy of founder Barbara Patterson and transform as an organization. I've been fortunate enough to be mentored and learned from past presidents and a number of founding members. If you want an organization to, quote, return to the way it was, I am not the candidate you should vote for. Under my leadership, BPIA can continue to make a major impact and open new doors for Black professionals, not only in the US, but around the world. It would be my honor and my privilege to continue to lead this organization on the path forward together with all those who are willing to do the work. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, especially for being so timely. You've got 11 seconds remaining in your 4 minutes. So we will yield that over to your Q&A. So I'll now open up the floor for questions and answers. We've got 4 minutes on the clock for that. Please raise your hands and I will call on you to come on in. And maybe I can kick us off and I'll ask both candidates this question, but this is a volunteer-led organization. It takes up a lot of time. Can you talk a little bit about how you plan to balance this commitment with your other commitments? Thank you.
Absolutely. You know, I like to say BPIA is a labor of love for those who are involved, for anyone who's served on the board or who is, you know, supporting our committees and our committee work or our events. For me, it's a very conscious decision to come and support BPIA in this way. And so I personally believe in targeting and prioritizing the efforts that matter the most, right? High impact programming, high visibility programming that puts us at the forefront of these, you know, institutions of power and the places that we want to be. And so what we've also found in the recent year that I've been president is just the positive interactions and the collaborative work that we've been able to also do with partners. So that helps to kind of lift the burden, if you will, for some of this work. So that concludes my answer to that question.
Excellent, thank you. I've got 2 hands up. We're going to do a little bit rapid fire for this. So
Sure.
Jonathan, can you unmute yourself and give your question? Then I'm going to go to Bob Wells to unmute your question. And I've got one in the chat. So Jonathan, come on in.
Thank you for that. Alexandria, thank you for your presentation. Really inspiring. Can you talk a little bit about the sponsors that you brought to the BPIA events?
Absolutely.
Great, Bob, come on in with your question as well.
Okay.
Bob, yep.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Sure. Thanks, Alexandra, for that presentation. My question is, what do you envisage to be forward-thinking you were to do this role? What direction would you like to see BPIA go if you were re-elected? Thank you.
Great. And then there's one question in the chat, which is, what have you done and what will you do to open career opportunities for members? You've got about 1.5 minutes to answer the 3 questions. And then others, if we're not able to get to your questions now, throw them in the chat. The candidate will answer them there. And we'll also have some buffer time at the end. Alexandria, back over to you.
Okay, and just to confirm, I have that 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer all of those questions, correct?
Yes, if you can touch on those, but please expound in the chat and there'll be some time at the end.
Sure. Okay. So to respond to the first question, who were our sponsors this year? BPI was fortunate to receive very large contributions and signs of commitment, including SAIC, which is a defense contract firm. They committed a 2-year commitment at $18,000. And you can also reference our website to see who our sponsors were for platinum, silver, gold, and bronze, that relays that various contribution level. How do I define define forward thinking and the vision forward? In short, it's expanding on the work that I've already done and will continue to do if serving as president. I see, am I also tracking the chat here, Sandila?
Yes, you've got about 30
okay.
seconds left though.
Okay, what have you done and will you do to open career opportunities for members? So we've been fortunate enough to start the infrastructure for this particular thing. As some may already be a part of, we have, you know, instituted our new opportunity board. We have over 300 people that are there where community members at large can post. We have our member Slack area, as well as exclusive job opportunities that are placed on the members only of the website. So I'll go ahead and hold there. And
thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so we are now over to Cal Williams to give his 4-minute presentation.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I welcome all of you. Congratulations.
Sorry, Cal, just 1 second. We've got someone that needs to mute. There's an alarm going off. Okay, great.
Sorry, I said good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Congratulations, Alexandra, on what you've accomplished so far. I am running for president of BPIA for the following reasons. I joined the board of BPIA back in 2005. I retired from the IMF in 2004, and I've seen the ups and downs of the organization, for which I've been committed since 2005, 18 years. It's amazing. It's been an amazing journey. And most of the exciting part of my journey has been my opportunity to meet with young professionals such as everyone who's here today. I've been able to mentor with people, and I've been very, very pleased to watch some of my mentees go on to successful positions elsewhere within the international community. One of the reasons that I'm concerned, and the reason why I'm posing my candidature today, is that I think we need to be sure that we stay true to our core principles and values, and that we also, by being members of the board of directors of BPIA, serve as examples for what kind of character and leadership is going to be successful in the international field. I was a commercial banker with the Chase Manhattan Bank for 10 years, with assignments in Paris, Geneva, and London. Those assignments were not where I was asked to go to meetings with someone as his assistant. I was sent to Munich, for instance, when I was manager of the office in Paris, to market Chase's services. I have done these kinds of things. When I was at the IMF, I was the representative for 2 years in two separate countries, two assignments in two separate countries. What I want is to be able to have a solid foundation for this organization going forward. We had a meeting with the pro bono attorneys. They did not pass judgment on our government practices. These were not discussed. They looked at the documents which they helped prepare. I was in the meeting. I think we need to be clear when we make our statements about what we have done and what we intend to do, that we state the facts correctly. To my knowledge, I checked with the acting assistant treasurer. We do not have over 400 members right now. We've had a substantial increase in membership. We have some members who are still delinquent in their dues. BPIA is a great organization and it needs to go forward. We need young leadership. I'm proud to say that I was on the board that brought people like Alexandria and Sandila onto the board of BPIA. And I'm very, very proud to see the accomplishments of the organization. I'm very, very proud, as Alexandra can attest, when she was starting her BPI chats, that we developed an innovative outreach program to reach younger professionals. We are not an old organization, we are a dynamic, changing organization. But a dynamic organization needs leadership and wisdom and direction, and that's what I hope to provide. Thank you very much. Most of you know me, by the way, as the Vice President in charge of the very successful Africa series. Every November for the last 6 years now, we've had a series on the regional economic outlook for sub-Saharan Africa. These have been very, very successful. The last two have been virtual, but before that, they were in-person events that were highly attended and highly regarded. We partner with the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, who provides senior economists, and we also partner with senior leadership. Well, our first partner was U.S. Africa Development Foundation. I will stop now and take your questions.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for another timely speech. So we'll start off with my moderator's question, which is how are you going to balance BPIA's needs against your other commitments? And then we've got Christina and Charles that are going to come in. Christina, please unmute and ask your question.
Sure, thank you so much. My name is Christina Biad. I'm the outreach director at Foreign Policy for America, and I've been a member of BPIA for 2 years now, and really appreciated over the last 2 years being able to work and partner with BPIA, bringing the community of foreign policy leaders at Foreign Policy for America together. And really just want to commend Alexandria for her leadership there. And on the same point, Cal, would love to hear from you what your plans are to partner with similar organizations and what kind of partnerships you've led in the past. I know you spoke a little bit about them, but would love to hear the details of how those went. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Charles, also can you come in before we turn back to Cal?
Yes, thank you, and good morning, everyone. Charles Carithers, Principal with Cornerstone Government Affairs, Chairman of the Council of Advisors for BPIA. Since joining as Chairman, I've witnessed Alexandria really transform this organization. We've raised over $30,000 this year alone, established many strategic partnerships Deloitte and United Negro College Fund among those included. And through Alexandra's leadership, you know, our great organization has a budget over $100,000. My question is for Mr. Williams, what are your specific plans or way forward regarding the fundraising for BPIA? And what are your milestones and any tangible plans to increase our coffers?
Thank you very much. Over to you, Cal. You've got 3 minutes to answer. And there's a couple other questions that are also related to fundraising efforts in the chat as well. Over to you, Cal.
Okay, thank you very much, Sandy. First, your question is a good question because I had not planned to run for president of BPIA. I served as vice president. I worked diligently to prepare my successor. I think my successor, if chosen, will be an excellent vice president for business and economic development. So I was planning to serve in the background. But I believe we have to take stock of the governance situation today. The board has had a very high attrition rate. I'm glad to meet for the first time the president of the advisory council. I would welcome an opportunity to meet with you off camera to talk about some of my concerns, which I've raised with the pro bono office of the DC Bar Association and other members of BPI have raised. In terms of partnerships, first, let me say that BPI is highly regarded in the international community here and worldwide. So we don't have to go out. People come to BPIA. That has been my experience. When I was with Vice President, we have a number of forums where we had co-sponsors, corporate sponsors of BPIA. We have had a series of seminars on entrepreneurship this year in which we've had people from Howard University, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, a very distinguished young thought leader worldwide, Landry Sanye, and we had someone from United Nations Development Foundation and others. So we have had a very substantial partnership with leading organizations. With respect to the question of strategic planning going forward, on a previous board, we developed a strategic generic funding plan, and we focused on what it is that BPIA can do to enhance its core mission. How do we reach the objectives we've set for ourselves? Yes. How do we increase, if we were supposed to support international, Black professionals in international affairs, how do we increase the pipeline? How far back do we go? So we had a dynamic program envisaged, and I would have hoped that we would implement that program. If I'm elected president, that will be the first things I will do. I'll form a committee to write a proposal to reach out to foundations to support BPIA. When I joined the board, we had a Ford Foundation grant. We had a paid executive director. The BPI board should not be doing day-to-day operations. The BPI board, as any board, as both of you know, should be advisory.
Just to note that you're at time, so if you could just wrap up, thank you.
Okay, well, so I ask you to consider what direction you want BPI to go in and who do you want to lead it? And what is the experience of the person that's going to be leading BPI? My experience in Chase and the IMF and 18 years on the board of BPI, both of you know me, speaks for itself. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. And for those questions that weren't answered, again, you can put them in the chat. The candidates can come in and answer them on the chat. We'll also have some time at the very end for open Q&A for those questions that were answered. We'll now move on to the role of Vice President for Business and Economic Development. Do we have Fellow Kugler on the line? I think I see your lovely picture.
Yes, I am.
Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon. I know that you're in Geneva.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm in a different time zone.
Excellent. So I've got your 4 minutes on the clock. Please begin.
Am I on the clock?
Yep, we can hear you and see you, and we've started your 4 minutes.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I'm running for VP of Business and Economic Development Committee. And the backstory is that I actually ran unsuccessfully for this same position. But instead of being despondent, this actually spurred me on into action because such is my commitment to this organization and to uplifting my community, meaning people of color, specifically people of African descent, Black people. And I also believe that you don't need a title to lead or to make impact in any of your community service activities. And so as Cal, I was actually working very closely with Cal, and he invited me and a co-candidate at the time, Sudi Kenyatta, to support him as the co-chairs of the Business and Economic Development Committee. And during my tenure, I think I've proven myself as somebody who is committed and somebody who is willing to take risks and to lead this portfolio. I work closely with my teammates and have to give all the credits to the BPI communications teams that really supported us in strengthening the BD committee's profile within and outside of the BPIA community. I developed a concept of trying to create programming around economic development, specifically entrepreneurship between the African American community in the US, of course, and other Black communities outside of the US. We've had 2 events so far, one with Africa, and the one that was specifically geared towards entrepreneurship within the African American community in terms of support and resources that are available. These were very successful and very well received and attended. And as Cal said, we also very successfully ran the 6th Annual Regional Economic Outlook on Sub-Saharan Africa Forum. It was very well attended, and actually it sort of exceeded our attendance record. We counted about 80 people on that call that day, and it was a very, very positive response. More than that, I've also, at my own initiative, interviewed the CEO of ENDA, which is an Africa sportswear company, and her name is Navala Yosembo, in the executive fireside chat, and there was a one-on-one chat, and it was also very positively received. So I hope that just hearing, in the very short time that I came back from being nobody and sort of being defeated in the elections, to really trying to show that I'm committed to this community. I want to grow with this community, and I also want to lend my time and talents into this community. So thank you very much for your consideration. I look forward to your question.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. And I love that message of resilience and commitment to the mission. Questions for Kolo? Raise your hand, or you can put them in the chat. I'll start us off. So one question I have is, you had a really successful year as a committee in your existing programming. Can you talk a little bit about forthcoming, what kind of ideas you want to add or innovate on with respect to the Business and Economic Development Committee?
Mm-hmm. So we are continuing this concept that we started. So just what's coming up this year is a programming with the Caribbean, with Latin America, and with Europe. So Europe, including the mainland and the UK. Just broader as well, I think it's an opportunity to really sort of start creating and growing the partnerships that we have already. I think we have very good partnerships already, in DC, but also thinking broadly in the world. And I think I am well situated, because I'm not in DC. I'm in Geneva, to start growing the community beyond DC or beyond the US. I think, of course, it's always going to be centered around, the US. But I think in reaching out to other, communities of Black people around the world, we'll really be reaching that impact and being inclusive in who, we reach out to and who we incorporate into our mission as well.
Fantastic. We've got a question from Nancy. Nancy, come on in.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Sel, for your commitment to the organization. My question would be in terms of US Africa summit that they just had. So as you know, the United States is trying to increase their commitments and businesses with African countries. So my question to you would be, how are you going to advance the shared prosperity within the US and Africa in terms of business?
Excellent. Back over to you, Kolo.
Well, I think we already started. I think the flagship event that we have every year, the Regional Economic Outlook of the IMF, is actually one way that we address in this already sort of head on. And as I said to you before, we've already had an event where we were speaking to US-Africa relations and what's happening in Africa in a business perspective. But I think it does not preclude us, being more creative as how to engage and how do we actually have business flowing between our communities in the US and in Africa. And that's something that I am very committed to developing, and I also invite those that have, innovative ideas as to how we can get this really going. I believe that Black people have got the key to their own economic emancipation. And so once we get money flowing between our continents and our, our countries, we really can develop together and grow as a community.
Perfect. And I don't see any other questions. So with that, we thank you very much, Kolo, and we will move on to the next slate of candidates.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So this is for the Vice President for Education and Exchange. There are two candidates, Kay Campbell and Kyla Denwood. Kay Campbell, you're up first. If you just want to come on to the screen so I can see you. Hello,
Can
hello.
you see me okay?
Oh, great. Perfect. And I can hear you well as well. So you've got 4 minutes on the clock. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on your time zone. So I think I'm well suited for this role on the board of directors. I have 20 years of national security experience, and this includes counterterrorism, illicit finance or counter threat finance strategies, making recommendations to disrupt, degrade WMD programs, terrorist networks. And I've also established military to military intelligence relationships with European countries, which was a pretty big deal. And I've also, in terms of exchanges, I've actually have a lot of experience working on exchanges with various organizations and foreign entities. So, for example, I helped train some Japan Air Self-Defense officers, or JASDEF. They're the Japanese equivalent of the Air Force, and so that was an important exchange that had diplomatic implications. And on the civilian side, I've also held quite a few exchanges with everyone from prosecutors to law enforcement people. And I've also presented at education, provided lectures to one of the largest conferences in the US. So I think I could leverage that experience to in this position, specifically with 3 goals that I think are necessary BPIA in terms of education exchanges. One is increase the visibility of people of color, right? And you could do that with education and exchanges, especially exchanges. So I've noticed in the news media, for example, when it comes to foreign affairs, I hardly ever see any people of color. In fact, I pretty much never see people of color on news media panels and so forth. For a good example of that is the Russian invasion of Ukraine, right? If you watch CNN, you never see a person of color. So through exchanges, increasing that visibility, and I don't know if that might include having the Speakers Bureau as an example. Mentoring is another goal for education and exchanges, especially so people both the graduate and undergraduate level, and even before that, high school students, for example, who are interested or might be interested in international affairs. And also in terms of awareness, we could use education exchanges to increase awareness of the organization and individuals within the organizations. For example, Council on Foreign Relations, which I don't think has had a terribly good diversity record. So I think in terms of exchanges with think tanks, that can help with what I mentioned was the first goal, the visibility, increase the visibility of people of color. Thanks.
Excellent. We now will open for questions for Kay Campbell. Please raise your hand and come on in. I can kick us off with a question about the Speakers Bureau. So I think that that's a really, really important thing for our names, our faces to be out there representing the community and commenting on these really important global issues. Can you talk a little bit more about how you develop that, namely how you would make sure that people that signed up for that were actually prepared to go on screen on CNN this evening, for example.
Sure. So it's I imagine basically a two-tier or two things, internal, external. So a speakers bureau within BPIA that and we could have the board vet people, some situation like this, right, where you're tossed. If you say you're a Latin American expert, we're going to ask you a few questions on Latin America, right? And so you got your picture, you got a bio, and you got your X number areas of expertise. And also there are others well-established speaker bureaus out there. And there's no reason why we can't establish some kind of exchange with those speaker bureaus, many of which, by the way, also have a diversity problem. So bottom line, two systems, both internally, with that has exposure to the external world, but also leveraging existing speakers bureaus.
Excellent, thank you. Earl, I see that you're unmuted. Did you want to come in with a question?
Yes. Excuse me. Trying to unmute.
You're unmuted.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Campbell, thank you very much, for your presentation. Could you comment a bit on how, past or present, there are measures that might be taken to strengthen long existing partnerships or collaborations with colleges and universities, especially HBCUs?
Sure. So I think BPIA has a pretty decent exposure, but I think it could be increased. So I think there needs to be an increase in exchanges with HBCUs, not just HBCUs, but especially HBCUs, where in theory, you're going to have a larger concentration of people interested in international affairs. So there's no reason why we can't reach out to HBCUs to offer to mentor people coming in. For example, I'd love to mentor people on career options in the intelligence field, right? Because the intelligence field has a diversity problem. Senior people in the intelligence field say that. There's never been a CIA director who's a person of color, as an example, or DNI person of color. And so whether it's career fairs or reaching out to mentor, to speak to different classes, different courses, or inviting some of these courses, for ad hoc or individual BPIA sections. There are a lot of things we could do at HBCUs at both the grad and undergrad levels.
Excellent, and we are out of time. Thank you very much, Kay Campbell. And next up, we've got Kyla Denwood. Okay, great. I can hear you and see you. So we've got 4 minutes on the clock.
Great. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Kyla Denwood, and I'm excited to run for BPIA Vice President of Education and Exchange. A vote for me will increase your ability to engage with the organization both in person and online through key programs that will contribute to your education and cultural development, whether you're a student, young professional, mid-career professional, or seasoned professional. I joined BPIA in summer 2020 as a student member during my undergraduate studies in New Orleans, Louisiana. With COVID-19 limiting travel, I was searching the internet for travel content, and after a while, my Instagram algorithm adjusted and took me to this organization's Instagram page, particularly the BPIA chat series, hosted by then Chair of Communications, Alexandria Maloney. I watched every single episode and would also recommend other young professionals to do so as well, and immediately invested in a BPIA student membership. The fact that this group has an online presence able to extend from Washington, D.C. to Louisiana is one of our greatest assets. I, as a student in New Orleans, was able to connect with a like-minded community that I could learn from and grow with years before I made my transition to DC. Since joining BPIA as a student member, I designed several education programs and social media campaigns for the BPIA community. Examples include careers in U.S. Foreign Service, an introduction to the U.S. Foreign Service Fellowships, international travel and language scholarships, and how to fund your study abroad experience. I also served on the BPIA Communications Committee, leading the graphics and social media team to increase the organization's online presence. During a 6-month period, I increased our follower count on LinkedIn and Instagram by 388%, as well as 72% on Twitter and Facebook. I then stepped up and served as the interim chair of the BPIA Communications Committee in 2021. As a young professional, I know what it's like to try to get scholarships, internships, fellowships, and jobs in the pandemic era, and it's hard. I will contribute that knowledge as BPIA Education and Exchange. In the future, I will lead the education and exchange efforts to new heights with a variety of new, simple to start, and high impact programs. This includes creating an application reading committee to help our members receive more competitive scholarship and fellowship opportunities. I would leverage the vast community of professionals to implement career chats, both online and in person, on a variety of international affairs sectors, careers, and employers. I also recognize the importance of networking and education for our professionals further along in their career development. I'm committed to provide opportunities for mid-career professionals to advance in their current occupations or pursue an international affairs career for the first time. To the VP position, I would bring my years of knowledge in international education, experience with BPIA, but most importantly, my perspective as a young professional. I'm grateful to be here and look forward to your questions.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. We got a question in the chat for both Kyla as well as Kay Campbell. Can you explain your strategy for engaging with and offering educational programming for adult members who are new to the field of international affairs? So those that are kind of shifting over into the field.
Yeah, that's a great question. My first instinct is always to reach back into the BPI community because there's always someone who's had that experience prior. And so I think that's a great opportunity to bring in a networking circle, whether that's virtual or in person at one of our great BPI First Friday events, to have someone to speak to their transition into this career, because there's always an opportunity for you to take the opportunities and experiences you had in your first job and bring it into the international affairs sector always. And so that would be a big opportunity there, is these networking circles that we already have established.
Excellent. And then there's another question. What specific plans do you have regarding efforts to improve international education exchange for underserved communities and HBCUs? So similar to the question that Kay Campbell got.
Certainly. So this reaches back to my time in the BPI Communications Committee sphere. So during that time, we actually established a list of contacts for HBCUs. And so we went through all the HBCUs that are all the HBCUs that exist, and found either a political science professor, as well as the president, as well as a potential study abroad office that they have. And we have all that information written down and on file. And I would definitely use that to then extend to our programs that we already offer in terms of international education. So we do a variety of programs each year, whether that's Intro to the Gilman Scholarship, have someone come in speaking from the Pickering, Rangel, and Payne Fellowships. And so really making an effort to extend to the HBC community from the list that we already created at this point 2 years ago was a great opportunity there.
Very good. And I'm not seeing additional questions. So we got a little bit of time. So Kay Campbell, I'm going to bring you in on that question that was asked to both of you. Strategy for engaging with and offering educational programming for adult members that are new to the field.
Sure. So indirect and direct approach. You got to do both. So the direct approach is, as I touched upon a little bit earlier, we have to reach out to undergrad and grad students directly through the schools and specific courses, i.e. professors, right? But not just grad and undergrad, high school. We got to, groom them young, right? So high school, but indirectly. So, all these think tanks and other organizations that have panels, I keep seeing all white panels, right? Very little or or because of white females on there. See, we have diversity. There's a white female on there. So indirectly by reaching out to these organizations, doing exchanges with them to let them know, hey, when you have when you have a panel on X thing, X subject, X topic, we have a slew of experts here within BPIA that, if you want, could be on your panel. So that's the indirect approach to reaching out to segment the population.
All right, and thanks to both of you very, very much for your interventions. We will now move on to the candidates for secretary. So we've got three candidates for secretary, actually. It's Ibodun Adeoye and Kelly Greed Hudson and Bobby Curtis King. So we're gonna go in that order, starting off with Ibodun Adeoye. And
Great.
please
Hello,
correct
good
that
morning, everybody. My
pronunciation
name is
if I.
Fine. Yeah.
Great.
Hello,
Thank you.
everybody.
4 minutes.
My name is Abiodun. I'm sorry, I think I've lost my voice this morning. Hello, everybody. My name is Abiodun Adeoye, but I go by Abe. And I'm running for the position of secretary at BPIA. I attended Salisbury University, Maryland, and I graduated in 2020 with dual bachelor's degrees in history and political science. And then I completed a Fulbright English teaching assistantship in Kyrgyzstan from 2021 and 2022. I'm now pursuing my dual master's degrees in public administration, international relations at the Maxwell School for Citizenship and Public Affairs at Syracuse University. At Syracuse, I serve as the secretary for the graduate student organization, where I record meeting minutes and chair the professional, academic, and creative grant committee. Since joining BPIA in October 2022, I have developed the Foreign Affairs and Capitol Hill Committee, and I'm currently working with the interim members to develop a program in the coming months. I'm running for the president secretary because I want to help foster the next generation of Black professionals in international affairs, specifically in an inclusive and accessible manner. Specifically as secretary, I want to help make the ongoings and developments of BPIA more accessible to the general body membership. At Syracuse, as recording secretary, I developed an initiative of putting together an executive summary of all GSO Senate meeting points, which the entire Senate and graduate student body have found to be very helpful. Similarly, I plan to work with the BPI leadership to implement new and similar measures to make the organization news and developments more accessible to all members. Finally, as a young professional entering the foreign service in 2024, this role as secretary will help further strengthen the work ethic and network necessary for me to make the most of my experience in the foreign service. Although I am young and I'm starting on the front end of my career, I bring the dedication to service and commitment to working with fellow board members to continue the progress of BPIA. I look forward to your questions. I'm sorry about my voice, y'all.
Oh, you're okay. You're okay. We can hear you. That's the most important thing. Any questions? I can start off. In your role, you'll certainly have to be very savvy with a number of different applications and platforms. Can you talk about different tools that you've used in your other roles in terms of note-taking, sharing documents with fellow board members, that kind of thing?
Yes. One of the things that I found to be very helpful is because Senate meetings tend to run very, very long because students, everybody has things to say, and I'm always having to constantly tell what questions people are asking. So one thing I found to be very helpful is to listen very closely to what students are saying, make the general points on paper, and then shorten them in ways that capture the question very, very well, even if not completely fully verbatim. And then I also started the practice of doing it in a numerical order rather than writing in a storytelling order like a prose. And in that way, students are able to also see the speakers, the timestamps in which they talked, the questions that they had, the points of the answers, and the general discussions as well. And so that way I'm able to make the meeting minutes more constructive so students can really follow step by step who's talking, the order of the speeches, and then they can also find information as soon as they want it based on the executive summary. So the executive summary gives the entire overview very concisely, and they can go into great detail to find exactly what questions were covered in which regard to whatever themes were discussed earlier.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We've got one question in the chat. How do you plan to manage your commitment to BPIA alongside your other day-to-day responsibilities at Syracuse?
Yes, at Syracuse as a recording secretary, we meet, the graduate student organization's Senate body meets once a month. And so that is something I'm able to manage very well with my other commitments. In addition, I'm only taking 3 courses this semester, so that provides a lot more opportunity for the other days of the week for me to be a lot freer. So I'm able to commit just as much to my academics and also to BPIA as well. And then my role as recording secretary also ends on May 3 of this year. So it's going to be a great transition for me as I start this role as secretary while my other role at Syracuse is also finishing as well.
Thank you very much. And we have no further questions for you. We will move on to Kelly Green Hudson. If you can unmute yourself, and you've got 4 minutes. Oh, you're not unmuted yet.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Kelly Green Hudson, and I'm a native Washingtonian. I grew up attending all public schools from elementary to high school to college. My grandmother, Lillian Green, was the GED director for the University of the District of Columbia. So I grew up with certain practices embedded in me as a child. From 6th grade, I was the president of student council, which propelled me into start the importance of speaking, documentation, and advocating. I graduated with a BA in criminal justice from the University of the District of Columbia and furthered my expertise in the federal law enforcement for the United States Pentagon. There, I learned the importance of confidentiality and chain of command of following directions. I further on my career, and because I wanted to do more, just outside of being a federal law enforcement police officer, I got into the education sector. And that was the passion because I grew up in an educated home where education was paramount. I'm currently in the education sector, but recently a graduate from American University, Washington College of Law with my master's in legal studies, where we learned the importance of blue book writing outside of APA, the fiduciary duties, and the importance of making sure that all rules and regulations, policies, and procedures are followed at all times is my top priority in any capacity. I live on the model that my grandmother had in her 12th grade yearbook: he who serves best profits most. Profit is not always monetary, profit is a public service. So I learned that early to make sure that giving my talent, giving my time can be well appreciated, not necessarily just from hearing job well done, but throughout my works of acts of kindness. It is my goal to utilize these strengths that I have with confidentiality, chain of command, and following all fiduciary duties to make sure that as the secretary, that those things are done. As a secretary, the importance of documentation, note-taking. I already started as a child, as I furthered on to college and then higher graduate school with my law degree. It is important that when being in the role of the secretary, you come with a non-bias approach, because your job is to be documenting and passing the information on. Your job is to be a listener with a watchful eye to make sure that every voice can be heard that may not have been able to be heard, to make sure that I bring no personal missions outside of the mission of BPIA, and that will be to join all Black Americans into the international sector. With me being in an education field now, Mr. Campbell, he stated on training them in high school. I like to go further. Let's mold them in elementary. I was molded in elementary. I started in the advocacy sector, watching my grandmother work alongside Eleanor Norton Holmes, Charlene Judravis, the late former Chief Fullwood, who was my professor at the University of the District of Columbia. With being a member of this organization, I prior to it, I was also had the privy to work with Jews for Justice organization, where we advocated for family leave care for the government. And we was able to.
Just a flag that we're out of time. So if you
Okay.
could wrap up your opening statements. Thank you. Sorry, didn't mean to. Did you have one more sentence you wanted to give, or are you happy to take some questions?
It will be my honor, privilege, and loyalty to serve as your new secretary for the organization.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much. So I'll kick us off with questions. I don't see any hands up yet, but same question of how, oh, I've got Earl coming in. Earl, please go ahead and unmute yourself and come on in.
Yes, if I might, thank you. Ms. Hudson, the question is for Ms. Hudson, all the candidates for secretary, and maybe for the board itself. The question is whether at this point in BPIA's global operations or global reach, is it time for there to be given, really concentrated attention on communication security for BPIA? It's virtual communications, all of its electronic communications, and if it is that time, what would your thoughts be on what needs to happen, and how might that be achieved?
I absolutely think it's time. I am a big advocate for intelligence. I love it. In reference to investigation, I had the opportunity to sign up, have a wonderful mentor within this program. In law school, the one thing that we focused on, or the course that I took, was cyber law. And as things are becoming where we're getting worried about hacking, we're worrying about how to protect the confidentiality, the privacy, I would like to see how we could make sure that all conversations, all recordings are prioritized, whereas though they are grouped in a way where of protection. I currently use a VPN on my computer just to make sure that I do my due diligence to protect all findings, hackings prior to. I also believe that a lot of things when we're communicating on the internet or on Zoom, that we also have to be mindful that we make sure that everything is monitored properly and centered around the intelligence of protection.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other raised hands? If not, I'll ask the same question, which is your tools and platforms that you use for effectively note-taking, as well as for transferring documents to board members. Any best practices there that you can share? Thank you.
So best practices for me, I like to believe in the acronym KISS, keep it super simple. In law school, it's very imperative that you stick to the point, but you're detailed with the information. You don't want it long and drawn out, but you want specifics. So documenting with note-taking is very important to me. However, transferring it on a ledger where everyone can see it, putting it in a certain order. I'm not only into numbers, but I'm into alphabetical order as well. So making sure that everyone has a way to go and locate, retrieve the file. And I believe that it should come instantly after communication when the memory is fresh. So that's the importance of the documentation and making sure that it is uploaded immediately to ensure that all records and information has been documented properly. Sometimes you may have to do shorthand. For me, that is what I do. However, when putting it on the documentation, it may have to be a little bit extensive according to if it needs to be verbatim to what someone has to say. We have a lot of strong opinions and desires to put in place. And I would want to make sure that every voice is heard, even if every idea is not able to be taken on hand immediately.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much. We'll now turn to Bobby King. You've got 4 minutes speaking time. Thank you.
Can you hear me all right, everyone?
We can.
Perfect. Thank you. Good morning, members of BPIA. For those of you joining from different time zones, good afternoon and good evening. My name is Bobby King, and I'm running to be the Secretary of the Black Professionals in International Affairs Group. I should start by stating this speech that I'm an Africanist. Like many of you here, I began my career in Africa, looking to understand the US engagement with the African continent. The connection between Africa and the United States continues to guide my career after my undergraduate studies in Elon University. Being part Sierra Leonean, I was lucky enough to work with the African Union Peace and Security Department's Crisis Management, Post-Conflict Reconstruction, and Development Division, where I helped coordinate events and efforts to secure peace in areas of conflict. The context that my AU education gave me fueled my master's studies in the joint program for Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia and Leipzig University in Germany, where I studied peace and security matters in Africa. I personally was introduced to BPIA in 2020 rather, to help me gauge the career path that I chose. I immediately took note of the like-minded individuals that sought to create a space for Black professionals and students considering the international relations path for their career. I personally continued because I appreciated the community that BPIA fostered. You made me feel that I belonged in the international space. I also admired the organization's ability to bring back both aspiring young Black professionals and established Black professionals that hold a wealth of knowledge on ways to navigate these spaces for societal benefit into the same room. I'm running for secretary to live up to the goal that BPIA set in helping others open doors and for me to open doors myself for Black professionals younger than me. The variety of Black professionals in this space serve as a loud encouragement for the path I've chosen, and I want to pass this encouragement along to others who may be considering a career in the international affairs realm. I personally was fortunate to start my work in the international affairs in Africa, where many diplomats look like me. I want that path to be as open for other young Black people who are also interested in the world around them. Personally, my vision for the BPIA specifically is that it remains a great source of knowledge and camaraderie for Black people entering the realm of international relations, as well as Black people further along within the careers. I believe our strength remains in expanding our reach to other Black students and new professionals, not only to swell membership, but to connect people of different talents with one another. To this end, my vision for BPIA is to see an organization that not only serves as a standard bearer for change within our field, but serves as an effective guide to help Black professionals secure jobs within the international sphere through connecting skilled individuals with one another and organizing the development of hard and soft skills for people within the international relations field. Additionally, I see the promotion of our field requires us to connect collegiate and international audiences through easily accessible channels. It would serve to build our network and expertise as well as connecting with individuals whose unique perspectives can help forward the goal of an inclusive international relations space. I believe that we can achieve this goal. If elected, I'll serve to push these goals forward, writing each note along the way. And I'm asking for your support if I'm given the chance, I'll make sure to confirm the confidence that you put in me and the work with other board members in order to further the goals that BPI has put forward. Thank you for your time today. I look forward to your questions, and I'll deal with those questions in much more depth.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. Any questions from the audience? I'll start off with my classic question now, which is the tools, platforms for note-taking and sharing documents with board members.
Of course. During my time in both in the African Union as well as my current role in IFAS, I've used notes in I've primarily used Evernote. However, I've also been familiarized with Google as well as Word, and I prefer to take notes in a chronological base where I would have the date of the earliest note first and then go in descending order. So I would work to coordinate the IT department, specifically with Masan, who is our person in IT, to get notes out as quickly as possible. I also agree that the notes should be taken and submitted almost the second after, if not the second, the day, so it's still fresh on everyone's minds. I believe that my personal favorite part to notes is also to have a after action report or action items for us to work on when dealing with goals and mandates for BPIA. Additionally, I would usually use the pardon. Additionally, I would also use the Google Drive system in order to connect the database so we can update as need be. I personally also like to make sure that my notes are correct, so I do usually ask people to repeat or to confirm what they've stated in order to make sure that no one is misquoted. Dealing with the organizations I have, as many of you know, there are major personalities that do not take lightly to being misquoted, and I understand the value of words when discussing the needs and passions people have within them. So I try to ask for repetition of the words for the effect of making sure that I have everyone's information correctly written down and then sent. Usually I do this longhand to make sure that there are there's no justifications or modifications to something that someone else stated, but I am also willing to look for suggestions from the board as well when dealing with notes to best accommodate needs.
Thank you. We've got a question from Julian Goldstein. Julian, do you want to unmute and come in?
Yes. So thank you for presenting. My question was, what have been your challenges coordinating and operating goals across large organizations, such as in your past experience?
That is a very fair question.
And Bobby, you've got just under a minute to answer, just for perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandili. The primary issue has always been kind of time differentials, where you would want an answer immediately in order to assuage any concerns. Sometimes someone's quite a few hours ahead, like usually 6 hours in my case, or 6 to 8, whereas others have been even 12 hours ahead. So for me, it would be the patience of making sure I get those coordinations on time. So what I'm used to doing in order to subside that specific concern is reaching out the day prior in order to make sure that information is in their inbox, or there's a real need for it from our end.
Thank you so much. We'll have to stop there. Thank you to all of the secretary candidates. And now we'll move on to the next group, which is members at large for the 2-year terms. And we'll start off with Jonathan Cummings and then move on to Bob Izuma second. Jonathan, you've got 4 minutes.
Hi there. Thank you, everyone. I made a presentation, just make it very brief since I only have 4 minutes. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm really honored to run for this position. So my name is Jonathan Cummings. I'm originally from Kingston, Jamaica, and now I reside in New York City. I moved to the States at 16 years old, and I attended Ithaca College, did my bachelor's in culture and communication studies, and my master's was at Cornell University in public administration. I've had several experiences within NGOs, think tanks, and multilateral affairs. I spoke at the United Nations several times. I've worked with various nonprofits, put on events at the United Nations. I'm plugged into UN committees. I am very, very experienced within the multilateral affairs field. I also serve as an advisor to a group called Global Policy Insights, which is an Indian-based think tank that does operations throughout Southeast Asia, Europe, and the United States. And we are very plugged into the international and multilateral sphere. Currently, I'm a practitioner at Deloitte. I worked as an alliance manager, which is a role that works on behalf of Deloitte to foster a corporate relationship, such as Microsoft, Apple, whatever it may be, to find go-to-market methods. How can Deloitte better work with these companies to find solutions to best serve clients? And right now, in my role at Deloitte, I work with small businesses and pretty much mentor them according to the rules of the SBA on how to develop a small business into a larger business? How can Deloitte best go to market and work with these smaller businesses to serve clients? Oops. So my experience with BPIA, I've had several experiences with BPIA in the past and currently. In the past, I've hosted and participated in virtual panels and discussions and various events. I've listed a few right here. I figured I'll just give everyone a visual to make it easier. I've also attended the Deloitte BPIA Talk series several times, 3 times to be in fact. I jokingly said I'm the unofficial advisor to the BPIA president, where I've come in and advise and how, or give ideas on how BPIA towards the president, what they could do better. Here's some ideas I have. So it's just in an unofficial capacity. But as far as the events I've planned with BPIA, with Alexandria and with the team, there's one which I really want to point out here, which is a celebration of the people of African descent. We hosted a virtual art exhibit in 2021. It was wonderful. I brought in the UN Rotary Club, UN Department of Global Communications. This event went all the way to the UN Secretary General's office. He was aware of it, and it was an amazing event. It was actually very pivotal to the creation of the UN Permanent Forum on the People of African Descent, which happened this year. And I have connections in Geneva who talked about it and actually sat at the forum. It's pretty amazing, and I look forward to continuing these experiences with BPIA. So for some of my ideas as a board member at large, I would work closely with the board in developing a BPIA strategic plan, a long-term strategic plan that will last throughout the tenure of the president and the current board members, increasing foundation operational model for increasing business development activities. And by that, I mean thinking of BPIA not just as a member organization or a nonprofit, but running it as a foundational model, which means more focuses on business development, larger private sector involvement. Look at how the Ford Foundation or the Carnegie Foundation operates. How can we make BPIA move in that model? Increasing engagement in foreign affairs professionals overseas.
Jonathan, just a note that you're out of time.
Well,
so if you could just take 15 seconds to close out.
Sure. Well, pretty much just getting folks in the multilateral affairs in Geneva, all these folks overseas, more involved with BPIA and just increase engagement of people of color overseas within BPIA. And with that, thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very, very much. So if you could stop sharing screen just so I can see if folks have their hands up. Feel free to come in with questions. I'll start off. So I think that the member at large role, that's my first board membership role. It's pretty amorphous in the fact that you don't have a specific agenda. If you had to give like one line on what you envision that role as being for you, what would that be?
To advise the board, advise the president, advise the team on how we could best elevate and activate BPIA.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Any other questions from the audience? I don't see any hands raised. All right, thank you very much, Jonathan, and feel free others to put your questions in the chat if something comes up. So Bob Azuma, you're up next, and you've got 4 minutes on the clock. Hello. Oh, for some reason, we can't hear you.
Thank you, Sandile. Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here. My name is Bob Ezuma, and I am interested in the position of a member at large for BPIA for the following reasons. I have an interest and passion for international affairs, and that's what I've pretty much done through my whole career path. I led the USAID funded project in Nigeria, where I provided technical assistance and capacity building. So I understand the landscape. And I had to mention one thing. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we had a Foreign Affairs Committee meeting to form the Foreign Affairs Committee, and one subject stood out. Everybody was saying, how do we get involved with Africa? I was like, okay, I'm on the ground. I've done it before. I can be the bridge for this organization to have a concrete link with Africa. When I mean Africa, I mean African universities, African organizations, USAID partnerships in Africa. I have done the work and I've developed these strategic partnerships over the years. So I'm not learning on the job. So my interest here is to help the board achieve the aims and objectives, which I know Alexandra has been doing a good job. I've been with BPIA for getting to 3 years now, and I've attended pretty much all the virtual events. Some of the live events in DC, I've always also attended. So I pretty much understand the organization, which I've been involved with in the last 3 years. So my interest here, I have a 4-point agenda, to put it simple. One, work collaboratively with the board to make sure the objectives, we don't lose focus of what we want to do. Then 2, outreach, which includes fundraising. Every organization needs resources, especially monetary resources. So I have the partnerships of people that I can bring in, just as the president has already been doing. Good job to her and the board. And also, most importantly, involvement with the African diaspora. We always see that buzzword, African diaspora. What does that mean? As an introduction, I'm from Nigeria originally. I lived half of my life in Nigeria and the other half in the United States. So I'm a proud Nigerian, also a proud American. So I understand both worlds. So when people talk about how do we get involved with Africa, that was what everybody was saying on that meeting, on that Foreign Affairs Committee meeting that we are trying to form. I was like, okay, you have to relate with the continent. What is it that you want to achieve? Is it business? I've led a USAID project that was based on food security and economic development. I did that for 5 years. That involved helping businesses export to America, for example. So if you want to get involved with share business, most of us don't know there's a lot of other ethnicities in Africa that are already deriving economic opportunities from that Africa has to provide. So the point is, where are the African Americans? Where is the African diaspora? So there are opportunities there in Africa that can be leveraged, but you need someone that understands the ground rules that have done it before. So I see myself as a link between the two continents. So that, I believe, will also be an added advantage to my membership of the board. So pretty much I've made 3 points here. 1, support the BPIA board in the objectives. 2, act as a conduit to the two continents. Then 3, use my already developed partnerships and collaborations that are already in existence to help the board move forward. So I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. All I'm trying to do is to add to what is already in existence, to help the board where needed. For example, some of us have strong, if you do a SWOT analysis, you have your strengths. For instance, I know people who have their strengths in connection to membership in the Hill. I don't have that. If you want me to meet with a congressman or a congresswoman, I might not be the best person to do that for you because I don't have that strong link. But if you want to meet with the president of Ghana, for example, or a minister in Ghana, I can make that happen within a short period of time.
We're almost out of time.
So to summarize, I will say that I'm here to support the board. And most importantly, I want to use my expertise and connections in the African continent to help achieve the aims and objectives of BPIA and make BPIA a truly international organization and not just national. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very, very much. And you actually, with that nice summary, already answered my question in terms of what you want your role to look like. Are there any other questions for Bob? All right, thank you very, very much. Our final candidate in this role would be Abi Ogunwale. Abi, if you can come on and unmute yourself. And I'm not seeing Abi come on, so we will move ahead to our next group of candidates, which is for members at large. Oh, okay, for the 1-year terms. And there are 2 within this one, Julian Goldstein and also Ethel Medenzawadira. And so we're going to start off with Julian Goldstein, and these are our final 2 candidate talks. You've got 4 minutes, Julian.
Hi, good mornings and greetings, BPI family. It's an honor to be here. A bit about myself. As a humble kid from Washington, D.C., I've been steeped in nothing but opportunity and blessings to learn and gain experience as an outgoing outreach professional, both as a member of Gen Z with about a junior level experience when it comes to operating and working both in organizational development and advocacy. I have amassed over 8 years of dedicated service subscribing to the servant leader model. My purpose and interest to join the board of directors as an at-large member for the 1-year term is grounded in a dedication to cultivate community. Due to direct prior experience in leveraging partnerships across the federal, nonprofit, local, and corporate entities, I've been blessed with the skills to coordinate, organize, and implement successful fundraising strategies. And looking towards implementing and really doing a lot of outreach as it relates to state-based operations, been quite fortunate to be trained in bipartisan outreach when it comes to both legislation in addition to implementing first-time programming support. When it comes to in addition to given my direct and enlisted prior military experience as a logistics serviceman, I had the ability to then develop communication with an awareness to federal defense priorities, which has been instrumental to my learning. Given my proven track record, as well as a consistent and dedicated volunteer, my ability to impact youth engagement and the over 50-year struggle for DC statehood has allowed me to coordinate partnerships across major Washington, DC area universities throughout the education consortium, which is the brain trust or body for all major universities. And in addition to given my holistic experience with the background and dedication towards commitment of community to not only to educate, but to uplift and increase awareness about pipelines and opportunities for education and why global issues impact our local quality of life. If elected, I will continue to build upon these attributes in supporting the servant leader model of this organization. When it comes to initiatives that I would then aim to propose and implement, I believe that it is crucial, as other candidates have mentioned, to begin to facilitate pipelines, both for our current college students, recent graduates, as well as high school students who are becoming more career curious and minded. Through this, BPIA could then launch a community partnership between the Office of the State Superintendent for Education here in the District of Columbia to implement a first ever annual career drive as it relates to opportunities in foreign affairs and development. In addition to I would seek to then unlock and truly increase our membership pipelines by leveraging relationships with the university consortium to serve as an active magnet for youth recruitment and retention, as well as implement recommend opportunity for First Fridays every other month to be held at Black-owned restaurants and establishments. That way, not only are we enjoying it and celebrating investments that we've been able to make and achieve, but we're able to reinvest back into the community.
Julian, just a note, you're out of time.
All right, thank you.
Take 15 seconds to wrap up.
Yep, that concludes my presentation. And with your support, we can move this organization forward indefinitely. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions from anyone? Feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself.
Don't be shy.
Oh, yeah, so I'll start off with that last question that I asked before, which is this position is kind of amorphous. You kind of get to decide what you want your legacy to be. If you had one sentence to kind of describe what you want your legacy to be as a member at large, what would that be? That one sentence.
Yeah, brain trust. So what that means is we could implement programming which won't require any additional costs. Whether it comes to implementing a writer's blog where we're able to showcase the skills and talent of all our diverse members and their background sets. And that allows us to become more published and established in the community. In addition to offsetting, any incurring fundraising costs by being able to propose group life insurance policy at the organization level. That way we're able to maintain and grow revenues without being reliant upon very generous but outside donors.
Excellent, thank you. Kelly, you got your hand up, come on in.
Yes, as a native Washingtonian myself, congratulations on all of your accomplishments. As you were speaking about bridging the gap between the Black restaurants as well in reference to the First Fridays of business supporters, how would you go about committing to fundraisers in reference to events set around making sure that we accrue revenue to put into the BPIA organization?
Excellent question. And I definitely have to wrap my head around the nuances, but immediately the first thing that comes to mind is the organization developing a directory of Black businesses, small, medium size, where then we would be able to not only have an index where we can go and solicit our commerce, but then being able to develop a community in collaboration with the Greater Washington Black Chamber of Commerce, where we could then facilitate, both events, partnering with the International Club of DC, which maintains ongoing fundraising operations to then magnify the scale and the presence we have, both in the district and at large.
Excellent. And with no further questions, thank you very, very much, Julian. And for our last speech, Ethel unfortunately was not able to join, but she has sent some words. And so I'm going to read that speech to you. Okay, so depending on where you're tuning in from, good morning or good evening. Unfortunately, I could not be there today. My name is Ethel Mwedziwen Dira, and I am excited to be running for a member at large position. In my current job, I develop and implement communication strategies for litigators across the country, focusing on criminal justice reform. My experience encompasses litigation and crisis communications, strategic storytelling, and media relations. My experience also extends to international affairs. My passion for international affairs led me to join BPIA in August of 2021, and I was drawn to its mission of increasing the involvement of African American and those of African heritage in international affairs. During my time at BPIA as the social media and graphics chair, I played an active role in promoting a variety of BPIA events, moderated an executive fireside chat, led the social media strategy for the 2021 and 2022 BPI career fairs, helped to develop BPIA's In the News Roundup, a weekly current events news roundup that highlights news about the African diaspora, and led a team of dedicated volunteers to increase our digital presence on social media. It's been a pleasure to watch BPIA grow, and I am grateful to all of those who have contributed to its success. I am committed to helping BPIA become more visible and to elevate the organization to new heights. And there's bolding around more visible and elevating the organization. My vision for BPIA's future is to grow our membership and public profile on the national and international stage, establish a media relations team, bring back op-ed workshops, and work to publish those op-eds in reputable outlets. Foster relationships with media outlets so they can consider BPIA as an expert in foreign affairs, and lastly, providing more networking opportunities. There are quite a few of us here, I'm sure, who have been to BPIA's First Friday networking events, which I hope to expand to other cities and be held at the same time every month. It is network opportunities like First Fridays that help people connect who are looking for job opportunities, mentorships, etc. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to represent BPIA as member at large. Thank you all very much. Okay, and so with that, we come to the end of our formal speeches. Thank you so much, by the way, for all the engagement in the chat. We now have around 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to start off by giving all of the candidates the opportunity, so just raise your hands. If you didn't get a chance to answer questions that came up in the chat that you would like to address, and then after that round, for audience members, if you have lingering questions that you want to follow up on, there will be time to do so. And so right now I'm looking for the candidates to raise their hands of anyone that would like to come back in to follow up on any items from earlier or anything else that you heard other candidates say. Cal, are you trying to raise your hand there?
Yes.
Okay, great. Feel free to come on in.
Yes, I would first like to compliment all of the candidates for their presentations. I've been on the board, as you know, for over 18 years, and I'm very, very pleased to see the quality and the commitment of the candidates for positions on the board of directors of BPIA. I wish you all every success, as I do the organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then I see Julianne.
Sure. I would just like to say, as we know, and a recurring theme we heard was being able to target our youth and maintaining education opportunities, or both when it comes to whether they're both currently, going through school or, recent graduates or professionals. I believe that, our overall opportunity to partner with universities, just not a consortium here in the District of Columbia, but nationwide, should become a bigger focus and action item for board leadership, regardless of the name and face.
Thank you. I've got Jonathan up next.
Hi there. Thank you everyone for your attention. So I saw a question in the chat which asked about increasing international education opportunities within, historically Black colleges and universities. So for that, in regarding to my field, in regards to international affairs, it focuses on multilateral relations, not just bilateral, right? So multilateral institutions like the World Bank and the UN, they have several opportunities actually for young people to get involved with these institutions. I personally have had the privilege of planning a large conference called International Young Leaders Assembly at the UN. And the thing is, it's almost like people who are in the know, and people who aren't just don't know how to get access to it. Some of these opportunities are available. It's just about increasing the visibility, right? And I guess my last point with the universities, I understand targeting historically Black colleges, but why not also expand it to universities that have, Black student groups, Black union student groups? I think that could also lead to an untapped pipeline for BPIA. So thank you.
Thank you. And continuing with the candidates, M. Glover will come back to you just as soon as we hear from all the candidates that want to intervene first. I've got next Abidon.
Yes, on the same note, as mentioned earlier about connecting students in professional opportunities and international affairs, I think something that I would definitely like to add to that is I haven't been a participant and a recipient of several fellowships, federal fellowships, such as the Fulbright, Boren Scholarship, the Critical Language Scholarship. I've also made it a mission of mine to also work with students, especially students of color, at my university, currently at Syracuse, and also at my alma mater, Salisbury University, on hosting information sessions and writing workshops as well. And then, not to toot my own horn or anything, but like I worked with 6 students last year on the Fulbright, and then 2 days ago, like they all heard back and they all made the first cut for the Fulbright, which is super competitive. And that's something that I also just want to continue working on expansively. And that's, I think that serving as secretary with BPIA is going to allow me to really do that in a bigger manner, and also reach more universities and more students across the United States. So that's my addition to that point.
Thank you very much. Bob and then Kolo.
Yes, I wanted to say more, add more to the membership of the outreach to university students. Like some of the candidates already said, it's good to concentrate with HBCUs, but we should also try to engage non-HBCUs. For example, I have a degree in government and a master's in global affairs and human security from the University of Baltimore. Most people don't know about the program, and it's a very good program in international relations and affairs. So they have a large student body, mostly 95% people of color. So as a member at large, that's where to start from. We can start from there and tap into it. From there, we can now move into other schools that are non-HBCUs. I just wanted to bring that out so that is something that I intend to achieve as a member of the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. Kolo and then Kelly.
Hi, I just wanted to very quickly, if just make a closing or statement and just continue what I was saying. I think I didn't really focus on my own qualifications or my background, but I am in international trade. And so I know the importance of business, I know the importance of trade, I know the importance of economic development. So I'd really like to lean into that and bring that into the committee. Another thing is that I think it's also something that I will bring is that open up the committee to different people and different ideas. I'm somebody who's really collaborative. And so if anybody is on the call today, even has an idea and wants to engage with me, my doors will always be open. I think that we really shouldn't be thinking in silos and really reaching out to different committees to making sure that we reach all our goals, because at the end of the day, we are one organization. So I look forward to engaging and to further serving this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kelly Green Hudson.
Yes, just piggybacking up from the two questions that I was asked, the one in reference to note taking and following up. The one thing that I would also ensure is that all meetings are recorded, so that way I can go back and listen as the meeting ended to make sure that all information was not left out prior to submitting it to each member on the board. In reference to the intelligence question, I would also ensure that all members could possibly make sure that all computers were updated, that they made sure that they installed every update when it came along, because those updates are always new things in the Microsoft Windows to protect the computers for safety and firewalls. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kay Campbell and then Kyla Denwood, and then we'll open up to the audience.
Sure. So just to quickly answer Ashley's question and give a closing statement. So Ashley, you mentioned, what schools do I have in mind and departments and so forth. So there's a somewhat famous list called the Ivory Tower list published by Foreign Affairs. I think the last one was published a few years ago, ranks all the inner schools around the world at undergrad, grad, PhD level. So I would start with those, just go down the list of these ranked schools and the HBCUs, focusing first on in the region, like you mentioned, Howard, right? And so I'd start with Howard, John Hopkins, SAIS. I'm a graduate, number 3 in the world at the grad level. And then I'd work my way out, go down that list, because you could prioritize everything. So, we have then by that way, you have a specific plan when you have this ranked list and geographically prioritize. Closing statements, last point. So again, 20 years national security experience, almost all of that in the intelligence field. I've done sanctions work. Some of my work has been sent to the White House and Office of Secretary of Defense on options to take for various problems in the world. And I would leverage the collaboration, my expertise in collaboration and coordination and exchanges in terms of advancing BPIA's efforts in education exchanges. Thanks.
Thank you, Kyla, and then Alexandria.
Sure thing. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I'm on the run, but I just wanted to state that although it is important to reach out to more universities and colleges, I believe building the infrastructure prior to increase engagement is the #1 thing that BPIA should be focusing on. And as VP of Education and Exchange, I would ensure that the college students are getting the bang of their buck for the $20 that they're spending on the membership. And they have opportunities to engage both synchronously with our virtual programming, but also asynchronously with things such as an application review selection committee where they can meet one-on-one with application reviewers, networking panels where they can log online, see a professional that they would want to receive mentoring from and reach out to them that way. So I believe before, in terms of college engagement, we need to build the infrastructure first to ensure that we are reaching students beyond just our virtual panels and that they have opportunities to engage from wherever they are in the country, not just at HBCUs or even the top foreign affairs schools, but even random schools like Tulane University or schools within the Midwest that don't really have these opportunities. Further expanding on my background, I did want to state that I am the recipient as well as the Critical Language Scholarship, the Gilman Scholarship, and I was just recently gapped from the inexperience that I had in undergrad to then reaching these really competitive scholarships and fellowships. I have that experience. I'm excited to share that with the BPIA community through more virtual programming, as well as through individual peer-to-peer mentorship. I think that's really important, is that peer-to-peer engagement and ensuring that students feel seen from others who have been through that experience prior. So thank you so much, and happy to be here today.
Thank you, Alexandria, and then Bobby. And at around 12:50, we'll actually need to move into our final portion of this session, which is explaining the voting and election process. So just a note to anyone, that the audience members that did want to come back in with questions, please put those in the chat. Alexandria.
All right, and I heard you say 12:50. I'm assuming you meant 11:50.
Oh, 11:50, yes. Thank you.
Folks, clarification. First, I just want to say how excited I am and honored to be here with the other candidates who are stepping up into these roles to, help bring these opportunities to our community, not only our candidates, but the members who are here as well today to listen in. We are all here, myself included, and each of you here by choice on our personal time, on our brief weekend. And I take your time seriously. So I want to say thank you for that. I'm tracking that there were some questions that were directed towards me that were unanswered. I put the link to my responses to those in the chat. You'll be able to click the link and open and request access to view my responses. And then lastly, as a closing remark, if you want an organization that is bringing strategic vision, inclusive leadership, sound governance practices as documented by the DC Pro Bono Law Group, as of this Wednesday. And most importantly, if you want innovative and engaging programming, responsive leadership, opportunities to serve and elevate yourself and your community as demonstrated in this past year, then I hope that I can have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bobby?
I'll make this quick so I can let everyone talk to ask questions. However, I realized that I missed Earl's question. I do believe that it's time for us to have secure internet, secure communications. I am not as skilled on that specific sense. Excuse me for the background noise. However, I would be willing to take, I would definitely be willing to take suggestions on that sense, but I do believe that the first step, VPNs would be a good step in order to secure any of our comms from cyber attacks. If you need me to answer any other additional questions, I'll be at First Fridays, and my email is kbcurtis37@gmail.com, lowercase. I'll put that in the chat for you, and have a nice one.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And we do have a special guest in the room, Executive Director Glover from WCAPS. He wanted to just give a very, very short intervention before we move to our final discussion of the.
Yes, I would be delighted to. Hi, good morning still, everyone. Apologize for the background noise. I'm on a flight. This is Dr. Malika Glover. I am the Executive Director for WCAPS, and I am so excited to be on the call today. I was able to listen to everyone, very impressed, and really very much looking forward to a very fruitful and growing relationship with BPIA. And I just really wanted to say thank you for our partnership, and I'm very much looking forward to working with everyone. Excellent leadership thus far, and so I appreciate being with you guys today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, we will close out the speaking portion of this and the Q&A portion. I'm going to hand it back over to Alexandria to discuss the voting process. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'm sure we've all enjoyed hearing the candidates speak today. So so thanks so much for joining our meet and greet meeting. We have enjoyed everyone speak, and we hope that we're looking forward to seeing how each candidate can help fulfill BPIA's mission and goals. So just stay tuned the next couple of days of an email to vote on the election. We'll have links to the bios and resumes and statements of each candidate. Also, you have to be a paid member, so make sure that your membership is up to date, and you can also renew your membership before voting. And that's pretty much it. We appreciate all your time that you've given us this Saturday morning when we can be, as everyone said, doing other things. But we really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. We'll stay on for a few extra minutes if anyone has specific questions for us, the governance committee. But otherwise, have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Thank you.
Question?
Oh, my hand's still up, legacy hand. Thanks again for the question, Earl. I hope I was able to answer it.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Have a nice one.
Yeah, may I